Hello and welcome back. We are continuing looking at Python and Django. Today, day 2, we're going to look at Django. So we're going to do some installs on that. We started with a very basic Python 3. We are going to look at the, just briefly mention the Python installation. It's package manager, pip. And we're going to do a little hello world in the Django world. So with what we've got so far, we need to go ahead and install the Django environment. First thing we need to do is we're going to make sure that we've got pip. So we're going to do this one we're using yum to do our install. And we are going to do Python 3 pip. And I've already got one there, so I can do a pip3-v. And see that I've got it 2020. So all is well there. So now I'm going to do a pip3 install Django. Whoops, except I don't need to use a sudo, my mistake. Oh, and I already have Django installed. Oh, wait, no, I don't. So here it comes, going to pull that up. Bam, there we go. And we also are going to need node. Install nodejs. Oh, we do need to be sudo for that. Oh, and I already got that one. So, whoops. There. So version 10.22.1 of Node. The version of Django and Node are not going to be at this point, as I'm doing this, late 2020. It's not going to be an issue. They may do a watershed version in the future, but for now, this should work well for what we're running with. So now we've got the basics. Let's create our first Django application. It's actually fairly simple to do. Let's just call it, let's call it something a little better than, and you're going to you create it by doing django-admin start project, and we're going to call this one, we'll call this tutorial. Let's call this dpproject. We'll just keep it simple like that. Okay, so now it created, you can see this dpproject folder. Whoop. Which we can also see over here, maybe easier, which created underneath it dpproject. It's got this manage, and by default, it's got a few files that it's thrown together. Those are the core to Django. Now this manage, let's go look at that. Let's look at this manage.py. This is the main script for Django. And it's going to load stuff from settings, which we see here. We're going to take a look at that in a second. And this is basically your, it's got some built-in pieces, but it's from the Django core. But most of that is not something we have to worry about right now. Let's take a look at that settings. There's some key things here in settings. It's really, as you sort of browse it, you'll see that it's got some stuff that makes a lot of sense. It's got a database connection. By default, it's going to do SQLite 3. It's got some password validators that we're not going to worry about at this point. Some of your basics about time zones and stuff like that. We're going to come back to some of these things. We've got a secret key that is security related. We're not going to worry about right now. We're going to leave our debug to true. Now, allowed hosts is something we're going to take a look at because it does tell us who can connect, how we can run this application. Now, if you want to actually run it, what we've got so far, you can just do a manage.py, do runserver. Now, what we're going to see here is that there's some unapplied migration. So there's some stuff that needs to be set up, and we're going to look at this a little bit closer as we go into this. But we've got these unapplied migrations that are for admin, auth, content types, and sessions. And it tells you right here, you can run Python 3 manage.py migrate to apply them. Now, right now, it's running at 127.0.0.1.8,000. Now, there's a couple of tweaks that we need to do in the AWS world. The first thing we need to do is allowed host by default is empty. So we're going to go in here, and what we have to do, because this blocks, essentially sets up the paths that you can use to get to your server, we're going to give it an asterisk, which says anything can get to it. And then down here in middleware, we're going to turn off the X-frames options middleware. We're just going to go ahead and comment this out. This is a specific thing to Django running in the Cloud9 environment. Normally, you're not going to have to worry about that. If you're running on your local server, what you may do on your local machine instead of this asterisk is you would do in quotes the address if you're going to run it locally, such as we just showed. So if I run it here, if I run on my local address, I'm going to run on port 8080, then it's going to come up on that address, port 8080. So that means in my settings, probably it's safest, I'm going to go ahead and do 127.0.0.1, or you can do the same thing. You can leave it there, and you don't have to mess with the middleware. You can leave those pieces there at that point. Let me make sure. I'm not sure I did that without reloading. So now if I do it, and in Cloud9, it's going to tell me this is where it exists. And I can see that now it's running successfully. So this is my Django server. And it gives me links out to, it's got some release notes. This is Django 3.1. I've got this debug equal to true. If I change it to false, I'm going to get something different. I'm not going to dive into that right now. So let's go back and take a look at what we've set up. So we've got our, we've got these pages set up. We've got some statics and stuff like that. Let's look at, actually, let's stop it first, and then let's switch over here. So if we do URLs, then we can see that, and this is of files that were generated. We looked at settings, which is your settings for your applications. URLs are addresses to get into your application. Now, notice here that it's got this admin already built out. So if I run it, and then I go to that same page /admin, it's going to have a little login. And so what do? Well, I don't have anything to log in as. And this goes back to those migrations that we saw a little bit ago. So remember here, it says you have these unapplied migrations. So for now, we're going to change this, but for now, we're going to put the SQLite database. So we're going to go in and do where it says, we're going to say exactly what it says. So we're going to do Python, except for I'm going to do Python 3 just because manage.py.migrate, or not, sorry, space migrate. And you can see it's going to walk through, and it's creating, basically what it's doing here is we can see where it's got these changes, and we're going to learn more about migrations later. But right now it's got these 4 that it says that it's done. It's creating some database tables and fields. Let me, while I'm thinking about it. Yes, okay, so I can use Python as opposed to Python 3. So now in doing this, what we've done is we've created a database for our application. So now if I run it, it's going to note that, and now look, no issues, everything's good. Now what we want to do is give ourselves something to log in. So we do that. That goes back to the manage. So what we're going to do there is we're going to do Python manage, and then we're going to do create superuser. And no, there's no dots, dashes, spaces, or anything like that. And now I'm going to give it a username, and let's just do it. I'm going to give it Rob, and I'll give it an email address. Let's do this. And password, and password again. Oh, password is too common. So I actually used password as a password. That's too common. So now it doesn't, I can bypass the validation, create them anyways. Otherwise, I'm going to come in and get a different password. So now I'm going to do something that's a little more unique, and it allows me to do it because there is some validation that goes on there. So at this point, now I've got this user Rob. And now when I run it, I can go here and I'll do a refresh just because. And now I can log in. And this is the admin side of your application. Notice we don't have any front end yet. The only URL that we had available, go back to our URLs, is this admin. But because of that, it does give us a few extra things that are off of the admin. And that's this admin site URLs. We can see here it's from this Django contrib import admin. So it's bringing in some extra features for ourselves. And this is all by default, so you don't have to worry about it too much. It exists. But what we created is it has users. So we have this users table, and you can see where I've got the user I just created. I can actually go into that user, and I could give myself, I could add some more information. I could change my username. It's got this hashed out password. I've got permissions and security. And so let me do a save. And so, and this has staff status. Let's see, so I'm active, staff, and I'm a super user. And you can see down here with permissions. So these are the tables that exist. We've got admin, auth, group, permission, user, content types. And hopefully you can see within each of these. Let's blow this up a little bit. You see where it has this for permissions for each of the tables. So I can do add a user, change user, delete a user, view a user. Right now, since I'm a super user, I can do whatever I want, but I could create a user. Let's do that real quick. So let's say I go into add a user, and this is going to be, we'll call him view, let's call him guest. And his password, we'll give it something. See, hopefully this will be not too. Save and continue editing. Because I used guest 123. So let's do something that is not that. And I save, and so now I've got this username guest. I'll go ahead and save that password just because I don't want to sync. And I'll just call him guest user just because. I don't need an email address. Now he's active, but he doesn't have, so quick note here, and you can see this here, staff status means that they can log into the admin site. Super user means that they have all permissions. So now let me go back. So we've got this users and groups that we see. So let me go in and do, within user, let's allow them to view a user, and let's allow them to, let's just do that. So they can come in and they can view a user. So we're going to, down here, save. And so if we come in as guest, we can only view users. Let me log out. I'm going to log in again. Guest, is that the right password? It is. Now see, I don't get that groups now. I only see users. And I can view them. But remember, I was able to add here. I can't add. I can't edit. And we're going to look at this in further detail down the road. But that gives us essentially a Django Hello World application to some extent. Now, what we can do is we can give ourselves a home page. And let's call this home. But the problem is we don't have a way to process it. So there's something new that we don't see here that is called views. And so we will create that file. Let's do, I think I can do it from here, new file. New file. I do views.py. And that's going to allow me to do some processing. And that's what we're going to cover tomorrow. So we're going to do our first view in Django. We've gotten it installed. We're able to do some basics. Actually, not tomorrow, I guess next episode. And we are going to actually start looking at the front end a little bit. But we at least got some basics here, and you hopefully are starting to see some of what Django can do for you. All this stuff was built within less than 15 minutes and with a couple command lines. And so we'll stop there, and we will see you next time where we'll pick it up, creating our first homepage. Have a great one.